Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. We will just wait a moment for everyone to join the session. Okay, we will get started. Welcome to today's Charity Village webinar. My name is Mercedes, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Specialist with Charity Village. As we are gathering here in a virtual platform, it is important to acknowledge that each of us is joining this webinar from the ancestral or unceded lands of the Inuit, Métis, and First Nation people. As a settler on this land, I'd like to acknowledge that I'm speaking to you from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Anishinaabe, which includes the Ojibwe of Fort William First Nation. For those who may be joining a Charity Village webinar for the first time, Charity Village is Canada's largest online job board for the nonprofit sector. In addition to our online job board, organizations can also post volunteer positions. So if you're looking for work or to recruit talent in the sector, Charity Village is a great place to start. We also have a ton of excellent resources for nonprofit professionals, including online courses, articles, fundraising tools, and free webinars like the one we are presenting today. Before we start today's webinar, I would like to quickly run through some housekeeping items. You may have noticed when you joined the webinar that you were automatically put on mute. Since we have hundreds of participants in today's session, it is important for us to minimize the amount of background noise so that everyone can clearly hear the presentation. But you can still ask questions and make comments using the question box at the bottom of the Zoom control panel. Look for that at the bottom of your screen. We will be taking questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions as you think of them, and we will do our best to get to as many as possible. You can also email your questions to webinars@charityvillage.com. If you happen to encounter any technical issues with the webinar, whether with viewing the presentation or with the audio, please let us know in the question box or by sending us an email. We will do our best to get any technical difficulties resolved as quickly as possible, but in a worst case scenario, please remember that we are recording today's webinar and we will send you the full recording by email tomorrow. So if you get called away or disconnected, you will still be able to view the full presentation. And with that, I'd like to welcome our presenters for today, Meredith Gray, Head of Marketing at Keela, and Bryna Dilman, VP of Growth and Marketing at Keela. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks Mercedes and Marina and everybody at Charity Village and welcome. We know there's a ton of you on the webinar today, so thank you for taking some time out of your day to join us and talk about all things donor retention. So I think let's dive into it. Bryna, you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
So welcome. Please feel free to communicate, ask questions in the Q&A box today, because I would love to say hello to many of you that have attended some of our webinars before and welcome you and thank you. Welcome new people, but let's chat. This is a webinar for all of you. We do not want to be sitting here talking at you. I would love this to be as much of an interactive conversation as possible. So please say hello, send your messages, and tell us what you're looking for, your challenges, your opportunities. That being said, let's look at our agenda for today. We are going to talk about donor retention strategies, best practices for recruiting new donors, challenges and opportunities. Again, I want to hear from you. What are those challenges and opportunities, especially to ensure that they're aligned with what we've been seeing across this industry? We're going to give you tips and strategies to ensure that you're making those deep connections, raising that revenue that you need for your missions. And we want you to build strong donor relationships. We're going to give you tips and tricks on that as well. We're going to talk about trends in the sector, best practices. We're actually going to let you go away with some takeaways. We're not just here to talk at you and hope that you had a great session, but give you takeaways to be able to ensure that you have the right tools to be able to move forward. And then we're going to have a Q&A. However, again, as I mentioned, please send as many questions as you can in the chat box, because it would be great to be able to answer them live so that you know that we are not AI generated. We are real live people and we're able to answer your questions as best as possible on the spot. I made Meredith laugh. I think I feel great.
If we were AI generated, I would be so impressed. We got a question already. Yes, the recording will be shared from Charity Village afterwards. So no worries if you have a conflict. We're excited to have you here and everyone will get the recording a bit later.
And hello and
So-
welcome to all my friends, including my wonderful pal, Rachel. So again, welcome everybody. Please send your hellos. Can't wait to talk to you all.
Yes, awesome. Okay, let's get into it. So Mercedes introduced Bryna and I. We are currently working at Keela, which is a fundraiser's CRM that includes all of the tools that fundraisers need to be successful. But Bryna and I are also fundraisers. So I myself spent about 10 years in the nonprofit sector at organizations like Cystic Fibrosis Canada, the Heart and Stroke Foundation, Camp Ooch, a whole bunch of different places. And I worked primarily in peer-to-peer and sponsorship, as well as I spent a lot of time kind of refining my skills of building a fundraising pipeline and diversifying revenue streams. So I'm really excited to be here. I know I'll let Bryna introduce herself, but I know I speak on behalf of Bryna and I when I say that this is something that we really love to do. While we have kind of moved over to the tech side of nonprofit, we are fundraisers at heart, and we love getting to connect with all of you and talk to all of you and see what you're doing and learn from all of you as much as you can learn from us. So Bryna.
That's right. Pains me to say I've been in the nonprofit sector for almost 20 years. That's right. I have worked in a variety of national nonprofit organizations supporting healthcare, mental health, and a bunch more. So again, I understand the nonprofit challenges. I've worked in fundraising, strategy, development, data integration, and I have done and continue to do a lot of research in the sector. So again, as Meredith mentioned, this to us is really about reconnecting and connecting with all of our nonprofit industry folks and ensuring that we look at each other as a team and a group. You know, all of us are really trying to support our missions, and the better we communicate and network and share best practices and challenges, the more that we're all going to succeed, which is really, really important because all of us here today support incredible missions, services, and support for the communities in which we live. And that is really important for all of us here. So again, thank you for having me.
Okay, we want to start by kind of gauging where everybody's at. So I'm going to launch a quick poll, and I'm hoping you can tell us around approximately what your donor retention rate is right now. That's what we're here to talk about. That's what we're excited about. So we want to kind of see how everybody's doing. We've got a lot of people in 41 to 60%. That is amazing. That is around where the industry standard is. We've got some people a bit lower. We've a bunch of people that are 61 to 80%. That's very, very impressive and good. I hope that some of you are using some of the things we talk about today, and maybe that's what's leading to that rate. But it looks like most people are kind of falling in that 41 to 60% donor retention rate, which makes a lot of sense. So let's get into it. Oh, I have one more poll actually. Let's launch this one too. What are your challenges with donor retention? We're going to cover a bunch of stuff today, but I think, you know, it's really nice for you to see what the challenges are and see if other people are experiencing similar ones. So is it team capacity? Is it limited budget? Is it communication? Or is it competing causes? Okay, I already see it's overwhelmingly team capacity. That is not surprising. I remember being a fundraiser trying to do as much as I could with limited resources, limited teams. So I'm going to end this one because I'm not surprised that team capacity would be the biggest kind of challenge. So let's go.
Okay, so let's just quickly jump into donor retention strategies. So donor retention strategies, on average, nonprofits lose, this is a crazy number, 49.8% of their donors each year. This is sourced from Canada Helps. This is a Canadian stat. This is a very interesting statistic. Why is that? Well, we're going to get into that. Increasing donor retention rates by 10%, just 10%, can increase the lifetime value of a nonprofit's donor database by up to 200%. Again, what does that mean? That means when you have appropriate donor stewardship and strategies in place, you can actually increase your connections and your abilities to retain those donors who are so hard to acquire in the first place. And acquiring a new donor is 5 times more expensive than retaining an existing one. This is a really interesting statistic because a lot of the times, and again, please write us in the chat, is it easier to talk to somebody who already knows you, who has already given to you, who maybe hasn't given to you, but has volunteered at your organization or has come to one of your events or has spoken with one of your board members? It is so much easier to connect to those individuals that know you, who have given to you before, or who know anything about your organization than it is to find a completely new donor. So this is really what we want to talk to you about, is how to focus your time and your effort in the right strategies, which is with donor retention.
Okay, so Bryna mentioned it can be up to 5 times more expensive to acquire new donors than it is to retain existing ones. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but it pays to keep your donors in a lot more ways than kind of what we traditionally think. So an obvious way that we see savings is when you look at marketing and advertising costs for donor acquisition. So on average, small nonprofits with budgets under $1 million typically spend around 13% of their budget on marketing and advertising, while larger nonprofits with budgets over $5 million typically spend around 8% of their budget. That's just a lot to invest in those channels, and a lot of that is donor acquisition campaigns. So a strong donor acquisition campaign's cost, it's going to depend on, your size, your mission, your goals, but they can be really expensive when you think about what it includes. If you're running a donor acquisition campaign on multiple channels, so whether you're doing email and social media and direct mail and any other channel that you might be using, between things like printing, postage, administrative overhead, the cost of the advertising itself, it can actually end up costing you $1.25 per dollar raised. So if you're not paying close attention to it, you could potentially be losing money on donor acquisition campaigns, especially if they include direct mail. Nothing against direct mail. It certainly has a time and a place. It's a very effective way of fundraising still, but it is one of the more costly ways. So the next way that it pays to retain donors is that they are more likely to give larger donations than new donors. So the average recurring donor will give 42% more than a one-time donor. So when you think about how much more donor acquisition costs than donor retention, plus the fact that these recurring donors give around 42% more, it makes a lot of sense to invest more of your resources into donor retention. And finally, building up your recurring donor base is the best way to secure stable funding for your organization and really build up that safety net. The probability of converting an existing donor into a repeat donor is 60 to 70%, while the probability of converting a new prospect into a first-time donor is only 5 to 20%. That is a wide range there. The donors in your database, even if they've only given to you once, they know who you are. Takes way less resources, especially when you consider staff time, to convince somebody to give to you again than it does to give for the first time.
Okay, I would love to just look through some of these chats. There's an incredible amount of questions that are so relative, I think, to everybody on here. So Lucy is asking, when people donate, people can check a box to opt out of any program updates. Is it illegal to send a follow-up specifically about their donation? So definitely you have to look at CASA law, but I think one part of the CASA law, and Meredith knows this a little better than I, but when somebody makes a donation, you are absolutely allowed to send them communications about that donation. A thank you, here's where it's going. It's really important to continue to ask, not just, do you want us to stop messaging you, but where and what do you find the most interesting and where do you want us to communicate to you about? That will really help ensure that you're communicating in the right way to that donor and they'll stay engaged because they want to contribute and hear about one aspect of your organization. We have an anonymous person saying they have 3 different and unique regions all connected by Ottawa, and they want to incorporate every region doing the same fundraising. One region is resistant to this concept. Help. Meredith, are you smiling? Because Meredith and I have had this conversation and have lived this experience exactly. And yes, it is very important to get on the same page, which is why we talk a lot about Keela and having a donor database that allows you to see how everybody in your company and your organization is messaging one donor. If you get an email, Meredith, about what's happening in Canada, about what's happening in Toronto, about what's happening in Ontario, it's a lot of information and it may not always be as important to you. And it feels like, you know, Canada is messaging you with maybe too much information. If you consolidated that information and in one email you had a little bit of a blurb about all three, it might be a little bit more strategic. Or if you really understand your donors, and again, this is having the right platform to be able to understand where they are, what they need, why they want to be communicated with, which goes into what we've been saying about it pays to keep your donors. Donor retention strategies are important. That it's really, really beneficial to find out and ask these donors what and how they want to be communicated to and about. Okay, I will answer a few more later, but I just want to make sure that we get through this presentation. So why do donors leave? Can anybody write us why? Do you know why your donors leave? I know one individual said that they have a museum and a lot of their elderly donors just leave just due to, okay, they're done fundraising and it's hard to find new ones. Well, there's a lot of other reasons why donors leave. One, donor fatigue and over solicitation. So that plays in really nicely with the questions that are being asked in this chat. 75% of donors stop giving due to receiving too many solicitations, while 53% stop giving due to poor communication from the organization. Now, when I say poor communication, that does not mean the emails are not written well, that they're not thought out, and they're not strategic. What this data point means is that exactly what I mentioned about too many solicitations and not doing it in the right way. Personalization. The new giving report came out across the United States 2 days ago. It's probably going to follow soon in Canada. And the number one takeaway is that individual donors are leaving at mass. The reason why they're leaving is, again, to speak to this slide. Donors are stopping to give because they're either receiving too many solicitations, too many asks that are not specific and clear, and poor communication. So how do we fix that? We're going to give you takeaways. There's also a lack of communication and stewardship. Lack of communication and stewardship can make donors feel undervalued. So we have a really interesting stat. 60% of donors are reporting that they never or they rarely receive effective communication from the nonprofits they support, which means each of you in all of your departments, how often do you come together as an organization? Again, that goes to that organization with Ottawa, that all your different regions are siloed and nobody wants to get on board for a cohesive plan. If you are communicating everything that you need for your department, major gifts or marketing or events, and you're not considering the recipient, who is receiving this email and all the other emails that your organization is giving, your donors are telling us. This is not a stat that we created. This is a statistic that has been documented by donors who are telling the industry, you are not giving me effective communications when I support your organization. So building meaningful relationships with donors takes time and effort. We all know that. And I think a lack of time and support and resources is something all of us have a challenge with. So what do? Well, in fact, 7% of first-time donors who make a gift to a nonprofit will make a second gift without any follow-up communication. That's only 7%. So again, together, you need to understand with all of your departments, all of your teams, what and how do you want to communicate to these donors? Because you are ultimately responsible for that second-time gift, because without that communication, appropriate communication, effective communication, consolidated communication, you have a very small chance of any donor making a second-time gift. And again, overcoming these challenges requires a well-planned and executed donor retention strategy. Organizations with a documented donor retention strategy plan actually have a donor retention rate of 54% compared to a retention rate of 46% with organizations that do not have a plan. So what does that mean? It means you need to get together with everybody on your team.
Oh, I think I think Bryna may be frozen. Hopefully you can all still hear me. But
And it makes sense for your community.
oh, there we go. You're back. You left me for a moment there and then you came back.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay, so overcoming these challenges, you need a plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Next.
Great. And I see there's one comment in the Q&A that I just want to highlight while we've been talking about communication and proper ways to communicate with your donors. Somebody's saying that some people are sometimes offended by getting their name wrong, emailing someone but referencing a spouse who has passed away, sending a tax receipt in the wrong name. And I see this person mentions that their donation software was gendered to default to the man's name on a tax receipt. That is a problem. I don't know which software you're using, but I would definitely say it's time to either talk to your company or to look for other options. That is, especially as we move into, a world where people are using different pronouns, where people are, want to be and need to be addressed in certain ways. It is really important in donor retention and in a lot of other areas that you are using the names and the pronouns that people would like to use if you want them to continue to support your organization. I just wanted to call that one out as it's very relevant when we're talking about communications. Okay, so now that we know why it's important to focus on donor retention and some of the reasons why donors leave, we're going to start talking through kind of the action that you can do to get them to stay and support your organization for years to come. So when we look at a few of these stats, organizations that have a donor retention plan in place, on average, retain 54% of their donors. So that is slightly higher than the industry average, but there's a lot of room for improvement here. And we're going to cover the things that can be built into that retention plan in a few minutes. 80% of donors are more likely to give again if they receive a personalized thank you. And 44% of donors stop giving because they don't feel appreciated. Those are some pretty staggering numbers, right? And it really shows that with a focus on retention and on stewardship and donor appreciation, it's actually not that hard to increase your donor retention rates. Team capacity is another thing, which I know everybody's struggling with, but in terms of the actual action that needs to take place, it's not that hard. It just requires a bit of time, a bit of effort, and that's donor retention strategy. So everybody on this call is more than capable of increasing your organization's donor retention rate. So that is why we're here to help.
Okay, tips for a strong donor retention strategy. Set specific goals for donor retention rates and lifetime value. Nonprofits that set goals for donor retention are 62% more likely to achieve them. Segmenting your donors based on their behavior, interests, giving history, to speak to even just what Meredith was answering. Donors who are properly segmented are 24% more likely to donate again. Segmentation actually equals increased donations. So a lot of individuals are asking on the chat, how do I know, and how does like a CRM help me increase my revenue? A CRM will help you increase your revenue because you're going to be able to understand who your donors are. You're going to be able to segment them based on the information that they've given you, and you can speak to them at scale based on those personalized settings. And that, therefore, statistically will increase your revenue. Develop a communication plan that includes personalized messages and regular touch points. Again, nonprofits that send personalized appeals generate 49% higher revenue per email than those who send non-personalized appeals. Again, how do you increase revenue with technology? Use your technology to partner with your staff. Technology is not meant to take over the fundraiser industry. It is not meant to duplicate efforts. It is meant to complement, enhance, empower the fundraiser with the appropriate information that's all within your database, and use that database at scale to be able to communicate effectively, personalized with these donors to be able to increase your revenue. Again, this is data. This is what the donors are telling us. And again, develop a communication plan that includes those personalized message points. It's really important to use that data and analytics to track donor behavior, measure the effectiveness of your retention rates. And we see organizations that use data analytics to measure donor retention are 2.5% times more likely to see an increase in retention rates. Numbers don't lie. It's really, really, really important that we understand, what does this mean? And I hope a lot of you aren't, stressed out about all the work this means. It really means pairing with the technology that can easily pick this information out, categorize it for you, have an email template ready to go so that you can send it out to all those different categories, segmentations, and steward, while you really get the opportunity to create those personalized messages. And you know what to put in there, you know how to make it better, but you need the technology to help you get there.
Okay, I know that we have people from organizations of all shapes and sizes on the call today, so I'm sure that some of you are probably already doing this, but we should never underestimate the power of an impact report. For a summary report, I feel like I've heard it called a million different things. For the purpose of this, we're calling it an impact report. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's a publication that your organization puts out at least once a year, sometimes multiple times a year, sometimes after a specific campaign or event. But at a bare minimum, an impact report should include a financial summary, so including revenue and expenses, highlights from your mission team, including any new developments or any program updates, and your future plans. I would say your short-term future plans. Donors are going to be looking for this information to decide if they want to give to you again, if they want to fund what you have coming up. And adding those details on what you're planning to accomplish in the near future should get them excited and eager to support your plans. And an impact report is important for many reasons. One, it shows donors the tangible outcomes of their donation. They get to see exactly what their donation accomplished. Donors that understand the impact of their donation are actually 87% more likely to give again than those that don't. And all of that can be found in an impact report. And an impact report has also been proven to build donor confidence and trust in your organization. So 72% of donors say transparency is the most important factor when deciding whether to donate to a nonprofit. So an impact report really shows that your organization is being transparent about how you're spending donor dollars, and it really shows that high level accountability to your donors. When donors trust you and understand what you're using their donations for, they are more likely to give to you again. And finally, the impact report is a really great opportunity to share stories and photos and videos from your community. If you're not doing a digital impact report, I would recommend it for a lot of reasons. I know there's going to be some people who want the paper copy, the nice pretty one, and that's okay. But a lot of people are, one, more receptive to getting things over email than in the mail. And two, it can keep your costs down significantly. So put those, those videos and those photos and those stories in your impact report. It's a really great opportunity to showcase your mission through creative imagery. So, charts and graphs and paragraphs and all of those things are important to have in there, but it's the visuals that are really going to resonate with your audience the most.
Okay. Before we start talking about building strong donor relationships, which include gratitude, engage beyond fundraising, and be transparent, I want to go to some of the incredible questions here because people are really asking incredible questions. Things like, how much is too many solicitations? Examples, if possible, feel free to answer at the end. Thank you. I think it's an important opportunity because we're telling you throughout this presentation, communicate, talk, personalize. Well, we actually have a really great webinar, and we can send some documentation after this about communications. I don't mind if I get an email from my child's school about, guess what, end of school is happening. Don't forget this. Guess what? Pick up for school photos is here. Don't forget that, all the clothing that your child might have left at school, come grab it here. Don't forget, sign up for the next year's. I will answer and look at every single one of these messages every day, once a week, whatever you decide to send me, because they're all relevant pieces of information that needs my attention. So as long as you send, again, what we talked about through this entire presentation, information that is relevant to the donor, personalized communication, has the appropriate call to action, recognizing the type of contribution that they're making, thanks them appropriately. It is part of your donor retention plan. It does not matter how and where and what you say and how many times you communicate with them. It is essential that you communicate with them because they want to hear from you. Again, they're not likely to ever make a second donation unless you communicate with them. So how do you do that? That is what you have to go and look and see what makes the most sense for your organization. Examples of personalized thank you, someone asked. Examples could be like, hey, Meredith, thank you so much for hosting this charity challenge or Charity Village webinar on June 23rd about beyond the first time donation. Meredith and I have hosted many variety of different Charity Village webinars. She has done a variety of different things with Charity Village. So it's important to be specific because Charity Village can thank her 18 times because she's done 18 webinars, but she won't know which one about what. So thanking them for participating in a program, for volunteering at an event, for coming to an event, for registering, for being somebody with the organization for 5 years or more, for contributing to that donation campaign page, to bringing a friend. There's a whole list of personalized opportunities that you can create as long as you know your donor and as long as you understand the information that they've freely given you when they've registered, donated, contributed, communicated with you, and that's in your database. So just to finish this slide strong, expressing gratitude and appreciation is important. 73% of donors say they want to feel appreciated, and 61% of those donors say that they would be willing to give more if they were thanked more often. So thanking doesn't always mean gifting. Thanking is important. I like to be thanked. You like to be thanked. Thanks for coming to this webinar. Thank you for contributing to the conversation. Thank you for asking questions. Thank you for telling a friend. Thank you for downloading our content. These are all important ways you feel good. Your donors feel the same way. And statistics are telling us that when donors are thanked, they will donate more. Providing opportunities for engagement beyond fundraising. So as we mentioned, donors who engage with nonprofits in non-fundraising ways have 40% higher lifetime value than those who only donate. What does that mean? Hey, Meredith, are you able to ask somebody else to check out our new website? It's brand new and we love your opinion because you're a valued member of our organization. Hey, Meredith, did you see that ad that we have? Oh, you didn't? That's so great to know because we're doing new ads. Hey, Meredith, do you mind seeing if you and anyone else want to participate in this new program that we have going on? Hey, Meredith, are you interested in attending this board meeting with me to be able to contribute because you have a connection to our cause? It doesn't matter what it is. You all know all the ways in which your organizations can engage with you. You just have to use that opportunity to be able to connect with them in that way. And again, be transparent and authentic in your communication. 64% of donors say they want to know how their money is being used, and 45% say they want to know more about the people who benefit from their organization. So if you do support an organization that has people associated with it, showcase those people. If you're supporting environmental issues, how does that help the neighborhood, the community? Are people able to breathe easier, walk their dogs easier? If you're supporting mental health, if you're supporting animals, showcase as much as possible the impact of your donations, of the donations that you receive.
Amazing. I'm going to jump into the Q&A for 1 second because I do see a lot of questions coming in about impact reports. Somebody's asking if an impact report is the same as an annual report. We do impact reports after campaigns and then an annual report in the fall. That is perfect. Keep doing that. That is amazing because what you're doing is actually you're reaching a smaller group of audience, or sorry, a smaller audience through those impact reports that you're sending out to the campaigns. I would say, I mean, I'm not sure if this is how you're doing it, but I would recommend, those reports should be reserved for the people who supported those campaigns. That is giving people an immediate understanding of the donation, the recent donation that they made and what it did. And then you can distribute that annual report more en masse kind of later throughout the year to a larger pool of donors. So that, I think that is incredible. Annual report, impact report, summary report, they are sometimes used interchangeably, but that is exactly what I would always recommend that nonprofits do. And then we also have somebody asking about any software or apps that can be used to track all of this donor data and statistics that we're talking about, I mean, Bryna and I are partial to Keela, so we're obviously going to throw that out. We would recommend you check it out. There's lots of options out there, but Keela can do everything we're talking about today. So I want to get into some trends and best practices. So we are seeing some things start to come up, some new things that are really exciting and that can, make donor retention a little bit easier for you. So the first is donor retention automation. It's a mouthful and it's a very vague statement, but basically what this means is using technology to streamline some of the more burdensome processes of donor retention. So it could be automating stewardship emails, could be, sending text messages, automating your social media posts, and automating donor retention is becoming increasingly more popular because it frees up a lot of the time that you would have to spend on the administration of donor retention. And when we talk about automation, one thing that we're seeing that is becoming more and more popular is actually automated donor journeys. So that means setting up kind of different communication plans that donors could take based on a criteria that you decide. So for example, you could set up a welcome journey for every donor that is giving to you for the first time. So basically that would be kind of the trigger criteria on your journey. So anybody who makes a first time gift, let's say they then receive a thank you email with their tax receipt. And then 3 days later, they will receive an email with more information about what your organization is working on. And then a week later, they receive an email with a story from your community. And then after that, they maybe end up in your newsletter mailing list or something along those lines. When we think about, I could talk about donor journeys for a million years because there's so many options, but it's really something that you can set up and rest assured that your donors are hearing from you without too much manual work on your side. And automated welcome journeys have actually been proven to increase donor retention by up to 13%. So they are definitely worth looking into. And this is trending, Bryna touched on this already a little bit, but it's trending not because it's supposed to be replacing the work that's done by fundraisers, because there is no replacing that human touch. Bryna and I used to be fundraisers. We've been in there. We know how much of that human touch goes into fundraising and how important it is. But what these things do is allow you to free up some time in your day to do things that the computer can't do. And that is things like thank you calls and taking a donor out for coffee. That is really what makes that difference. And this allows you to do more of it. So again, I won't dwell on this, but Keela does have the ability to do this for you. So the next donor retention trend is micro donations. These are smaller, more frequent donations, and they're becoming more popular because they're really easily accessible. So somebody who might not be able to give you $100, but they might be able to give you $10 per month for the next 12 months, or become a monthly donor, which when you think about it is also in some ways a recurring donor. So, not only would that give you $20 more than if somebody had given you $100, but it keeps them coming back for more. It also makes them much more likely to continue to give to you in years to come, rather than that one and done donation. And this kind of giving is becoming really popular with millennial and Gen Z donors, people who want to give but don't have a ton of disposable income. And this idea of paying a small amount on a frequent basis is something that these younger generations understand. It's how they pay for their streaming services. It's how they pay for their cell phones. They understand this way of giving. So these options are really accessible and digestible for them. It also gets those younger recurring donors into your database so that they will hopefully continue to give and increase the value of those recurring gifts over time. A great way to encourage these micro donations is actually by looking at your donation form, if you have one, an online donation form, and making sure that they offer recurring giving options. So some donations forms have a really great feature where if somebody lands on your donation page looking to make, a $20 donation, you can actually prompt them to make a slightly smaller gift. So in this case, maybe it's $10 or $15, but to become a recurring donor instead. So having these options on your online donation forms is really important for donor retention, as well as increasing your kind of recurring giving revenue. And finally, the last trend in donor retention is corporate social responsibility partnerships. So By partnering with corporations that share your values and mission, you can build credibility and trust with your donors. So not only is this going to help you with donor acquisition, but it's also going to help you with donor retention. And the key to using these kinds of partnerships to boost donor retention is to showcase the partnership to your existing donors. Don't rely on the corporate partner to do it. I know sometimes we're like, oh, this is amazing, they're going to advertise all this partnership for us. You should be doing it on your end as well. Show how the partnership is supporting your mission. Show how it's helping you get closer to reaching your goals. Donors like to know that you are seeking opportunities to increase your impact without increasing your budget. And by partnering with the right organizations that have good brand recognition, a positive public perception, and shared values with your organization, it can go a really long way to keeping your donors engaged. And I would say, do your research before. I know we tend to be like, oh, it's a corporate partner, they want to give me money, that's amazing. Do some research into the brands. There's, brands are being questioned. I think there's a lot more spotlight on ethical practices of brands and what's happening out there in the world. So that would be my one piece of advice to you, is just do your research before kind of jumping headfirst into a new corporate partnership. Okay. We have another poll. So I just went through the trends and we want to know which one of these is the most appealing to you? Which one of these do you think that would make the biggest difference in donor retention? I'm seeing automation is coming up a little bit ahead. Yes, lots of people are thinking automation. That's great. I agree. I think automation is really going to be the way. It's going to be a huge part of like the future of fundraising. And then micro donations was in second, and then CSR partnerships was in third. I would 100% agree with that kind of ranking. And if you're looking for something to start with, automation is probably the first thing to start with. Okay.
Okay, I want to get into the Q&A, so we're going to just give you the takeaways. Develop a donor retention plan and set specific goals for retention rates and lifetime value. Connect with Meredith and I or anyone at the Keela team. We can dive into this in more detail. Segment your donors based on behavior, interests, giving history, etc., to personalize communication. Again, Meredith and I have a ton of experience on what does that mean, what does that look like, and success rates for each type of breakdown. So please connect with us, send us your email, let us know it's okay to reach out. We can help you. Use data and analytics to track donor behavior and measure the effectiveness of retention efforts. So again, Meredith and I worked in the nonprofit sector before AI, donor wealth data, all this information was available to us in these platforms that are now available to you today, like Keela. Data and analytics sometimes can be scary. It is not scary when you have a platform that can deliver these results in terms that make sense to you. So I highly recommend using and finding the best ways to gain this data, because that will tell you what to do. Provide regular opportunities for engagement beyond fundraising, and be transparent and authentic in your communication. And emphasize impact reporting to show donors the tangible outcomes of their support to increase their emotional connection to your organization.
Okay. Let's do it. Let's get into the Q&A. There's so many in there. Where do you want to start, Bryna?
Let's start at the top.
Let's do it.
I recently joined it. Yeah. You want to go?
You go.
I recently joined a nonprofit organization as a fund development manager. I've worked as fundraising coordinator for nonprofits, but this is my first managerial position. Feels like a lot and unsure where to begin. I know where you've been. I know where you're going to go. The organization I'm working for, looking for a donor management software. And of course, Keela's on the list. Doing our search to find software isn't easy. I would like to know how donor management makes it easier for us with donor retention and let more money come to the organization. So I think we mentioned in a couple of places, the more that you can categorize and have a full 360-degree view of your donors will help you interact and communicate with them best. Understanding who your donors are from their interactions with you will help you segment them, to personalize their messages with them, to create the appropriate strategies, which we've shown in this presentation. Actually increases retention, relationships, and more importantly, revenue.
Great. Okay. The next question is, how do you track your donor retention rate? My org can easily track who has donated and when, but because we have such a large group of donors with a diverse range of donation habits, it's harder to track who has stopped donating without going in manually person by person. So calculating your donor retention rate is actually a very easy formula. And if you know who donated and when, that's all you need to know. The formula, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on it right now, but you can find it by Googling how to calculate your donor retention rate. We actually have a really good blog about it on Keela. And we also, I believe, as part of the follow-up email, we're going to be sharing a resource that's actually a donor retention calculator. So you can use that. It's a spreadsheet that you can literally plug your donors in. It'll give you instructions, and then you can calculate your organization's donor retention rate.
Hey, you've been with an organization in Canada covering Ottawa Museum, and every year you lose donors that are elder, and it's hard to get new ones for the museum. So I think that that's really interesting. I think there's an opportunity to connect with, and it's not just elderly donors, but donors who who've been with their organization for quite some time. Connect with them and ask them who can replace you. If you've cared about this organization for so long, would you be willing to connect us with other people that you think that might continue this opportunity? Don't be afraid to talk to your donors just because they've left and they're not able to continue supporting you in the same way that they've been in the last couple of years. Talk to them. This is a really important opportunity to really understand why. And maybe they think they're too old. Maybe they think they're done with the organization, and maybe you can have a chat about other ways they didn't even know they can still support you.
Okay.
Next
one.
one.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Joyce,
yeah.
no.
We do not have donors in our CRM database, so they're using Neon One. We have donors in Realm software, a part of ACS. I don't know how to get our old school donors who mail us checks into an online database without their email. You can create donor records for people if they don't have email. I would say do it, put them all in, and then you can try and collect that information in other ways. Whether that is sending them a piece of mail, asking them to fill out a form on your website so that you can get their email. But I would say put them in. You have nothing to lose by putting them in there. Just because they're in an online database doesn't mean you have to have their email.
And Andrea is asking, do your strategies apply mostly to individuals, or do they also apply to corporations and foundations, and how do these differ? So absolutely, there are different ways in which to engage donors and corporations and foundations, but it is the same thing. Those corporations are literally going to those organizations and those foundations literally have people and individuals in them. So I think it's really just a matter of how and where you communicate to these people, talking about the longevity of the foundation or the corporation and how that longevity can be created outside of just this relationship. But there's definitely opportunities. And again, connect with Meredith and I, and we can put together some talk tracks for you, but absolutely having a database that separates them is also very important. Okay, I will do the next one. How can you retain donors without being pushy and causing donor fatigue while keeping them engaged? So again, just an opportunity to understand why and how your donors aren't engaging with you in the first place. It's really important to talk to them the way they want to be talked to, personalizing your communications. You are not being pushy as long as you're communicating to them effectively. I'm not sure who's still here on the call that heard my example about my child's school messaging me about a variety of different things that I need to do before the end of the school year, before the beginning of summer, or before the next school year begins. All of these things are communicating to me about the school, but it's all relevant because it means something to me. So again, as long as you communicate as many times as you need with the appropriate different touch points, again, as we mentioned, the appropriate retention strategies, all the appropriate things that you need to do in order to ensure that you're not talking to them about the same thing over and over again, that's where you're not communicating effectively, and that's where you're not communicating authentically. Okay, what is the sweet spot for not enough and too many solicitations? So I think that is answered in the previous question. Is there isn't a definition. And again, Meredith and I have another webinar copy that we can send you that really talks about the different types of solicitations, and it doesn't really matter how many, as long as it's appropriate and it's personalized and it makes sense to your organization and you're showing and being authentic and true. Donors mostly leave us when their kids age out of our programs and stop attending due to school entry, and families stop giving after about a year or so. That's okay. These individuals could be alumni. They could be supporting you for the next generation. If any organization has an organization where they have people age out or they stop giving after a certain opportunity happens, that's okay. But you need to communicate to them, be authentic and transparent. What will happen if we don't exist anymore? What will the legacy of this organization be? How do you communicate to those donors and those families of how do you help us continue the stability of this organization for that legacy opportunity for you to say you still know us because we are still here? So just communicating, being authentic, and saying and asking what you need to continue getting their support. And again, using their network. They've aged out. Do they have new neighbors, new family, new networks that can help support you as well? How do you compassionately re-engage with former donors who regularly donated before the pandemic and ceased to do so during and post 2020? So again, this is a really great question. And a lot of you, I'm not sure if you've read the USA giving report, but a Canadian one will come out soon, but feel free to look up the giving report. It's engaging with them and not just asking them to re-sign up. It's engaging with them to find out why. And again, a lot of the answers might be, we were furloughed, we didn't have a job, we were scared for our finances. Well, then ask them if they'd like to be on your volunteer list. Ask them if they'd like to be on your newsletter list. Ask them if they're still following you on social. As long as there's an opportunity for them to still see and hear all the things that they're doing, your organization is doing, there's always an opportunity to re-engage them at a certain point with a certain donation campaign or program that will be of importance to them. And also ask them, maybe you were giving $50 a month and then you stopped. Would you be willing and able to give $10? A lot of the time, donors give it and contribute to your organization because there's a connection to your cause. Those connections don't just end because they're in a financial situation or they're out of the city or out of town or whatever. So find out the information, talk to your donors so that you can get that answer. Jen and Pam, I think we've met somewhere before. Hello and thank you. I'm happy to chat over the phone. So we will connect with you. Thank you so much. Our donors often come at or after end of life. Planned giving is good, but short-lived. Pardon the pun. Wow, that's a good one. Yes, donors come at the end, but stewardship along the way is probably very essential to your organization. So ensuring that you know who your donors could be for that particular planned giving and how to make sure that you're communicating that so that when that unfortunate situation does happen, that there is the opportunity for those individuals to pass those generous funds to your organization. So communicating with those clients and customers, communicating with those donors and finding out how and why you're going to need these funds, ensuring their family and friends know about the reason and why they're having these conversations with you so that if anything does happen or change, that the family members are aware of it as well. Any guidance of a threshold amount to mail a printed thank you as opposed to an email? The cost is probably the biggest difference. So it really all depends if you're spending $100 on mailing out thank you letters or giving letters and you make $115 and you're making $15. That's up to your organization if that is enough to continue the program. It's also, again, as we talked about, transparency. Communicate to your donors. It costs us $10 more to take in your donations in mail versus going online. Is there a way for you to go online? A lot of people that may not have access to computers have family members that have access to computers, have stations like the library that have access to computers. So it's okay to communicate and ask, again, as long as you communicate. Wow, lots of emails still left. Or questions. Is it recommended to segment donors based on their demographic, age, or giving levels? Absolutely. And you don't have to call it out by age or levels, but you can call it out, but what does that mean? Hi, I'm asking you if you're interested in giving on Instagram. Is that something that's interested in you? You don't have to tell them that you're asking that question because they reside within that age range, but you can definitely utilize the communication and the type of ask that you're willing to put out there to those channels. So the answer I would say is 100% yes. Okay. What is the right level of communication? How can we connect with donors regularly without bugging them? I think we answered this before, so we'll skip to the next one. My chat is disabled, but we're implementing next year is internally restricting all major gifts so that every donor receives a thorough impact report. Amazing. Our unrestricted gifts are harder to track at the major gift level, not impossible, just tough with limited staff and resources. Leanna, this is where I would highly recommend technology to support that, because again, your technology, your software is really going to help you figure out the best way to understand those gaps that you have right now, especially with limited staff resources. Julie, biggest difficulty getting donors on the phone to review impact report with strategies to connect live with donors. Send them an email first. When's the best time to connect? You might be calling donors when you're at work, but they're at work as well, and they might not have the time to connect. You might be calling them when they're at home because you think the evenings are better, but guess what? Those donors might be with their families and they might not be able to have the time making dinner, picking up kids or family members from programs. So ask them when the best time is. It's okay to ask and try. Never stop trying. Many of our donors are not digitally savvy, don't use email, website. How do we send out impact reports to those donors? Maybe it's a visual. Maybe it's not, you have to go online and download a report. Maybe it's one picture. Somebody, you can send it out and maybe it's just with a click of a button and they can view it. That is also something that you can ask and send out and message people in your database. Do you know somebody that isn't able to see this? Do you want to bring them over and see it? Communicate with your donors and ask them. What is the time frame for thanking donors after their donations have been received? I would say right away and absolutely more than once in different ways. Thank you for your donation. Here's your tax receipt. Thank you for your donation. Did you know that it went here? Thank you for your donation. This year, all of our donations went to this particular cause or increased this particular program. So absolutely, you can send one donor a bunch of different thank yous as long as it is relative to what they've done. Somebody intended to give their email. There, we got it. Emails, amazing. Thank you. I'm so glad people are enjoying this. Any idea of what is more effective? Thank you, calls, emails, texts, or letters. Texts are difficult. I think texts are also expensive for nonprofits. Also, text messages are meant for two-way communication. So sending somebody a thank you on a text is kind of a little bit difficult because they're not going to text you back because it's texting the organization. So I think calls and emails and letters are three really great ways. And again, once you have a database that knows who your donors are, you can find out which donors prefer calls, prefer emails, or prefer letters. And then you can do it that way so that you're not communicating in different ways to somebody who only likes it one way. Or if someone likes it all three, then do all three. But I would ask. Again, talk to your donors, ask them, engage with them. Thank you, Susan, for commenting on our presentation. Adriana, what would be the best reason to convince board of directors to change our donor database? How costly can that be? It really all depends on who you're with and what and how your issues are and your challenges are. If you want to change donor databases, investigate the database, investigate how it's going to solve the challenges that you're currently facing. So make sure that you ask those questions when you're seeking out software like Keela and how we can solve those pain points and provide you with the resources to help you increase revenue. And that is a really good case for your board of directors. Josephine, thank you. I will absolutely connect with you over email. I believe Charity Challenge will get all of these emails for us. How can we incorporate legacy funds or endowment funds into a pitch with donors at a retention strategy? Incorporate it in. That's, I think, the strategy is don't shy away from what your donors want and what they want to hear. Put it in there. Thank you, Eric, for the compliment. And thank you very much, Bryna and Meredith. Juan, I think that was it. Am I missing anything? Marina and Mercedes.
That was amazing. Thank you so much, Meredith and Bryna, for such a great presentation. Do you have any final comments before we sign off today, just to share about any resources that you're looking to share with the audience or that type of thing?
Yes, we will be sharing a ton of the resources that we mentioned with Charity Village, who will send this over to everybody today. But again, you have our email addresses. Connect with us. If there's something that you didn't see that you would like to see, please message us and we will absolutely get it to you, because again, as fundraisers to fundraisers, we want to make sure that you have all the tools that you need to be successful. And thank you so much for engaging with us in these incredible questions, for attending this webinar, and to Charity Village for hosting us.
Perfect. Thank you so much again to Keela. I just wanted to remind everyone that you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow with a link to the webinar recording. So please feel free to share this link with your colleagues. And the email will also include a survey link that you can fill out with your feedback on today's webinar. You should see a survey link pop up right here in Zoom following the session as well. On behalf of Charity Village, thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope that you'll join us for our next free webinar, Fundraising 101, Encouraging Active Board Participation and Leadership. You can find more information on this and all of our upcoming webinars at charityvillage.com/webinars. Thanks again for taking part in today's webinar, and I wish you all a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.